Now I think that I'm optimistic. I have to tell you the truth as to where we are in the country. That's my job. But I think we can get out of all this. You know, it's just not that hard for Americans to do the tough stuff when they have to. We've always done it. We can still do it. And I believe that we will, in the next 2 years, begin to turn the ship of state in a direction we want to go, which is a little more fiscally responsible for our money, and quit spending ourselves into the poorhouse, and try to create a vision of the future that people feel like they can count on. And when we do, when the average businessman feels like investing in people and machinery to grow his business is in his best interest, and he will not find that it is something he needs to fear down the road, we'll pull ourselves out of the situation we're in, and we'll get out of 9.6% unemployment, and the banks will start lending money again, and we'll be back in the boom. Now, the good news is that you probably, if you had to pick a place anywhere on the map of the 48 states of the Union, the old 48, to live in, you're living in it. Okay? So we just had an economist in Temple who was very, very enlightening and entertaining. And it's really hard to find an economist that's entertaining. Who said if you take a ruler and draw a line straight down through the Dakotas, straight down all the way to the tip of Texas, that when the recession starts to go away, that line represents the last place this recession got to, and it's the first place that's going to recover. Because up and down that line, you see people, with Texas being the perfect example, who have been responsible enough not to go crazy and get themselves so far in debt they don't know what to do with it. Because fortunately, our founding fathers in Texas set us up a constitution that required us to pay for the things we spend our money on. So we're not allowed to deficit spend under our Constitution. And therefore, we have controlled ourselves, and we are in the best shape of any state in the Union for long-time future prosperity. So we are living in the right place at the right time in this recession. And that's why we say in Washington, if you guys would just listen to how we run things in Texas, we get this thing back running right. Because it's actually the truth. It's sometimes hard when you say, and my dad used to say this, and he's been right in my lifetime, there's a difference between the I wants and the I needs. And from the government standpoint, we need to take care of the needs, but we shouldn't try to be a government that takes care of wants. Because everybody wants everything they can get their hands on. It's human nature. But we are to provide the needs necessary for our society to go forward. If we'll just change from the I wants to the I needs, we'll do a lot better in this country. So I want to thank you. I know we got a short fuse here. I want to be willing to, of course, have to take the time to give you a chance to ask me questions about anything. I know one that you've got to be interested in, so I'll tell you straight up, because I know you're building several projects here, and somebody wants to know about what will be going on with the earmarks. If anybody in here doesn't know what an earmark is, it is a specific spending that can be designated by a member of Congress to spend money for. In this morning's news, the future majority leader, if Republicans win the House of Representatives, Eric Cantor, announced that he's going to propose no earmarks for either party for the next 2 years. Now, you ask, one of the things people don't realize is that no Congress can bind any other Congress on more than 2 years. So the rules now, if that's the rule that gets passed, when we go to meet for writing rules, that for the next 2 years, neither Democrats nor Republicans nor the president will be allowed to have individually designated. People forget that the president's the biggest earmarker in the whole country. Every president, not just this president, every president is the biggest earmarker in the country. Because everything that he proposes is is the president's designated spending. And so it's going to be very interesting if that happens. And it means a lot to some communities that are growing. So I wanted to tell you that's where it will be. And that will be a debate that will start on November 15th. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to open it up for questions and let y'all ask them. Yeah, Chief.
Well, do you think that the Texas GMs will side with y'all about capping trade stuff since it affects Texas so much?
Some will and some won't. Folks in the oil patches will, and the folks that aren't in the oil patch won't. But we have, there's a few, I can name a few that will side with us. Down in the Houston folks, kind of crazy not to. That's good. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Congress not being able to bind another Congress. We've got a lot of the bureaucracies.
On the rules.
Right.
The rules you write for this Congress are for this Congress only.
Well, my point goes to the writing of regulations and things that are controlling our country through all the agencies, the federal agencies in there. You know, it's law that is being written not by the Congress, but by agencies. And that's where a huge portion of these regulations that are hurting our business come from. Do you see anything happening with that in the future? Is that going to remain the same?
I want to start off by saying I didn't plant you in the garden. Jonas is back there turning in circles. I'm going to share something with Hutto that it's not a finished product, but we are about to go to war on that issue. I've discovered a statute that for some reason everybody else forgot.
Yeah.
And it was written in 1996 under the Gingrich revolution, if you will. And it says that all agencies issuing regulations must submit them to the Congress. And if the Congress calls for a vote on those regulations, the Congress can vote not to adopt those regulations. And if they don't submit them, they're not valid. Since 1990, and that was signed into law by Bill Clinton. So it was a bipartisan bill that was signed into law. We just discovered it and asked the question, how many regulations since 1996 have been submitted to the Congress? Thus far, the answer is 0. So I plan to go to war on that and start picking out regulations and declaring them invalid because they haven't followed the statute. We'll see how that works out. But I've got to read the statutes. It's literally being faxed to me as we're speaking here today, because I am an old judge who kind of like to read the law instead of trusting a bunch of 20-year-old kids to tell me what it says. But I'm really excited about that because actually we need to be able to review regulatory agencies at that level because, quite frankly, you're right. What happens out of agencies is the most onerous part of our lives. And that we really need to be able to take a look at some of the stuff they're doing. Mayor?
I believe that Speaker Pelosi has been quoted as saying we need to pass this bill so we just help this health bill.
So we know what's in it?
So we know what's in it.
Yeah. Well, we're starting to learn what's in it.
Yeah, but are our representatives, our senators, or whatever, not familiar with this bill? Or
No, sir, they're not familiar with this bill. I sat down because the criticism was going crazy on our health care bill. Our health care bill was only 2,400 and some odd pages long. And so the one that passed the House, I went through it. It took me all night. I couldn't tell you everything. I couldn't possibly tell you everything was in it, but I got the concept and I didn't like it. So I could say I have gone through it, being honest. If I had to write an analysis, I wasn't reading it at that depth. It didn't take me but about 100 pages to know, as far as I was concerned, everything in there was garbage. But then the Senate passed a bill that was 3,000 pages long, over 3,000 pages long, and nobody that I know has read that bill. They're reading it now because it's a disaster. And that's the wrong way to do something in Congress. A 3,000-page bill that has things that have nothing to do with health care hidden in the bill. is the wrong way to legislate. We should have taken care of the health care bill, or the health care problems in about 500 or 600 page bills. And each one should be on a topic that we had to deal with, like the uninsured. And not this gigantic monster that has things in it that have absolutely nothing to do with health care. And we will be fighting, if this thing remains law, and I think there will be an attempt to repeal it, and I think that that's a lot of what this election's about. It'll be a fight, and it probably won't get repealed until after the next presidential election, but I think we're going to be headed down that path. But the future should be, we should set up policies that if the average American can't read it in a couple of days, then we shouldn't pass it. And you ought to be able to read and understand what's going on, a 100-page bill in a couple of days.